Listen to the rhythm of a quiet afternoon. Suddenly, the peace is broken by the heavy rumble of a diesel engine and the crunch of tires in your driveway. Heavy boots march up your walk, followed by that long mechanical hiss, a pressurized wand spraying harsh, sickly sweet chemicals around your sanctuary. But the worst part isn't the lingering stench. It's the crisp white paper slipped under your door, an $800 invoice for your pest control contract. You pay it, gripping your pen tight, hoping you've bought peace of mind. Yet, just a month later, you see that familiar scurry across the kitchen floor in the dead of night. The rain washed the chemicals away, and the bugs are back. So the truck returns, the hiss returns, that heavy bill returns. Year after year, you remain trapped in a slow-draining, never-ending loop of frustration, toxic residue, and an emptying wallet. Now, imagine tearing up that burdensome contract for good. Picture walking into a farm supply store and finding a simple paper sack of white powder sitting quietly on a bottom shelf. It costs about $4 a pound. Yet, that single cheap bag can completely eradicate hundreds of crawling pests from your home. It is so incredibly safe that the government allows it to be mixed directly into commercial livestock feed. You could quite literally eat it. But to a crawling insect, it is a weapon of absolute destruction. That simple $4 bag of dust effortlessly defeats the $800 chemical contract, breaking the exterminator's loop forever. My name is Tom. I'm an old farmer, a man who has spent more decades working the dirt, raising animals, and fixing up old drafty barns than I care to count. I don't wear a suit, and I don't drive a fancy exterminator truck, but I know what works and I know what lasts. Long before pest control became a multi-billion-dollar corporate empire, folks out here in the country had to solve problems with their own two hands and a bit of common sense. I remember my grandfather, a man whose hands felt like tanned leather, dealing with heavy infestations. I'd watch him walk into the dim, dusty chicken coop with a battered tin scoop, scattering a fine white dust into the nesting boxes and along the wooden beams. He used it in the feed room to protect the winter grain, and he used it around the foundation of the old farmhouse. It worked then, and it works today. It's an old heirloom secret, passed down from a time when we relied on the earth to solve the earth's problems. By the way, if you're the type who likes to read the fine print and see the old wisdom written down, I've left a link to my personal guide down in the description. You can look at it later, but right now just pull up a chair, listen, and let me explain. So what exactly is this mysterious white dust sitting in that cheap paper sack? Let me define it for you, clear and simple. It is called diatomaceous earth. It's a bit of a mouthful, I know, but the substance itself is a marvel of the natural world. Diatomaceous earth is not a chemical concoction brewed in a laboratory. It is practically as old as the dirt itself. Millions of years ago, vast oceans and freshwater lakes covered parts of the land that are now bone dry. In those ancient waters lived microscopic algae called diatoms. When these tiny organisms lived and died over millennia, their microscopic silica-rich shells drifted down to the bottom of the water, creating massive thick deposits. Over millions of years, the water receded, the oceans dried up, and those beds of fossilized algae turned into soft, chalky rock deep underground. Today, miners go down and dig it out of the earth, much like you would dig out clay or chalk. Once they bring it to the surface, they mill it, grinding that fossilized rock down until it becomes an incredibly fine, soft powder. If you were to plunge your bare hand into a bucket of diatomaceous earth right now, it would feel as soft and smooth as baking flour, and as weightless as baby powder. If you hold it up to your nose, you'll find it has absolutely no odor. There are no fumes, no burning sensations, nothing. It is simply ancient fossilized earth resting quietly in your hand. But how does a soft, harmless, ancient dust actually kill a bug? This is the most crucial part to understand, and to see it, we have to imagine looking through a powerful microscope. To the naked eye, it's soft flour. But under a microscope, the true nature of diatomaceous earth is revealed. Those fossilized algae shells aren't smooth spheres. They are jagged, irregular, and fiercely sharp. Under extreme magnification, this soft powder looks like a battlefield of broken glass, barbed wire, and razor blades. Now imagine a bug, an ant, a roach, or a bed bug going about its nightly business. It scurries across the floor and walks straight through a fine dusting of this powder. The bug's body is protected by a tough outer shell, an exoskeleton, which is coated in a very thin, essential layer of waxy lipids. That wax layer is what keeps the bug's internal moisture locked inside. When the insect crawls through the diatomaceous earth, those microscopic razor-sharp shards of fossilized glass cling to its legs and underbelly. As the bug moves, the jagged edges mercilessly slice and scratch through that protective waxy coating. It physically dismantles the insect's armor. Once that wax layer is compromised, the powder acts like a highly absorbent sponge. It aggressively drinks up the moisture and fats right out of the bug's body. The insect begins to leak its vital fluids, and over a short period of time, it completely and utterly dehydrates. It dies a slow, dry death from the outside in. And here is the true beauty of this mechanism. It is pure, unforgiving physics. Modern insects are incredibly adaptable. Over generations, they mutate and build biological resistance to the complex nerve agents and poisons sprayed by the pest control companies. That's why the exterminator always has to mix a new, stronger batch. But a bug cannot build a genetic immunity to a physical razor blade. An insect can no more mutate to resist diatomaceous earth than a man can mutate to survive walking barefoot across a sea of broken glass. Physics always wins. Because it relies purely on mechanical destruction, the list of victims this powder can claim is remarkably long and comprehensive. First and foremost, it is a death sentence for bed bugs. This is incredibly important because bed bugs are notorious for developing heavy resistance to commercial chemical sprays, turning a mild infestation into a terrifying, unfixable nightmare. Diatomaceous earth stops them dead. It is equally lethal to the scout ants marching in a long, dark line across your kitchen counter. It takes out the heavy, greasy cockroaches that scuttle behind your stove. It wipes out the fleas hiding deep in your living room carpet, waiting to ambush your ankles or your dog. It neutralizes the silverfish in your damp bathroom and annihilates the grain weevils trying to colonize your pantry. It is an indiscriminate equalizer for crawling pests. In fact, organic farmers and homesteaders have been quietly relying on this exact powder since the early 1960s to protect their massive silos of stored grain from beetles and mites, keeping our food supply safe without dropping a single drop of poison into the mix. Now, I am a plain-spoken man, and I pride myself on telling the absolute truth. I am not here to sell you snake oil, and I am not going to promise you overnight miracles. If someone tells you a product is perfect, they are usually trying to empty your wallet. So, let's talk about the honest limitations of diatomaceous earth. First, you must understand that it is a slow, methodical killer. When you spray a toxic chemical, the bug twitches and dies on contact within seconds. That gives you immediate satisfaction, but it doesn't solve the nest. When a bug walks through diatomaceous earth, it doesn't die instantly. It carries those microscopic shards back to the nest, moving around, slowly drying out over the course of several days, sometimes even a week or two. You have to be patient. Second, this powder does absolutely nothing to insect eggs. The eggs have a different protective casing that doesn't rely on that waxy moisture layer in the same way. So you must leave the dust in place long enough for the next generation of eggs to hatch, crawl into the powder, and die. And finally, here is the absolute golden rule, the one limitation you must never forget. Wet powder is useless powder. If you spray it with water, if the humidity clumps it up, or if the rain washes over it, the powder turns to mud. The microscopic razor edges become blunt and dull. It loses its bite entirely. The magic only happens when the dust is bone dry. This brings me to a warning. This might be the most critical piece of advice I give you today, a literal matter of life and death. There are two very distinct types of diatomaceous earth sold in the world, and you must know the difference. The kind we have been talking about, the safe, natural, bug-killing kind, is clearly labeled as food grade. Food grade is raw, unheated, and perfectly safe to handle. It is the pure ancient fossil dust, just as nature made it. However, the hardware store also sells something called pool-grade diatomaceous earth, used for swimming pool filtration systems. Never, under any circumstances, use pool-grade for pest control. To make pool-grade, manufacturers take the raw powder and superheat it in massive industrial kilns to thousands of degrees. This extreme heat physically alters the structure of the diatoms, turning them into crystalline silica. Crystalline silica is highly toxic if inhaled. If you breathe in pool-grade dust, those crystallized shards will embed deep in your lung tissue, causing permanent, irreversible scarring and serious respiratory disease. It is dangerous material. So, when you go to the store, you must look the cashier in the eye, read the thick lettering on the bag, and ensure, without a shadow of a doubt, that the bag boldly says food grade. Once you have your bag of safe, food-grade diatomaceous earth, you need to know how to properly apply it. This is where almost everyone makes a crucial mistake. Folks, buy the bag, grab a big metal scoop, and pour thick, heavy white lines along their baseboards, making it look like a snowdrift in the living room. Bugs are small, but they aren't stupid. If they encounter a mountain of thick white powder blocking their path, they will simply turn around and walk a different way, completely avoiding the trap. You do not want a mountain, you want an invisible minefield. To do this, you need a tool. Go get a simple plastic puffer bottle, the kind with a long nozzle that lets you squeeze air and powder out together. Fill the bottle halfway, give it a shake, and gently puff it into the air. You are trying to create a ghost of a dusting, a sheer, barely visible cloud of white mist that settles lightly onto surfaces. That is what kills them. Walk through your house and gently puff this invisible mist deep into the cracks and crevices along your baseboards. Pull your refrigerator out and puff it heavily underneath, where the roaches love the dark heat of the motor. Take your bed apart and gently puff the dust along the stitched seams of the mattress and deep into the joints of the wooden bed frame to blindside the bed bugs. Puff a light dusting under the edges of your dog's sleeping mat to catch fleas. You can even mix a small cup of it directly into your bulk storage bins of dry rice, beans, or chicken feed to stop the weevils cold. If you are applying it outdoors, around the foundation of your house, you must wait until the morning dew has completely burned off and the ground is dry, or the moisture will ruin your efforts. While food-grade diatomaceous earth is safe enough to eat, we still need to practice a bit of common sense and adhere to a few extra safety principles. When you are walking around puffing this dry dust into the air, do yourself a favor and tie a bandana over your nose and mouth, or wear a simple dust mask. Even though it's safe, inhaling any fine particulate dust, even flour or baking soda, can irritate your throat and make you cough. Protect your lungs while it settles. Once it settles on the ground, it's completely fine. Keep the bag closed and out of reach of curious toddlers, just so they don't dump it on their heads and get it in their eyes. If you are dusting your pets for fleas, use a very light touch. Don't cake it into the animal's fur. Remember, this powder absorbs moisture and oils. If you use too much, you will severely dry out your dog or cat's skin, leaving them itchy and miserable. And finally, a rule for the outdoors. Please respect the honeybees. Bees are vital to our world, and this powder will kill a bee just as quickly as it kills a roach. Never puff this dust onto the open blossoms of your garden flowers. Apply it strictly low to the ground, around the base of the stems and roots where the crawling pests live, leaving the high blooms safe for the pollinators. At this point, you might be scratching your head. You might be sitting there wondering, Tom, if this stuff is so cheap, so safe, and so incredibly effective, Why in the world didn't the pest control guy tell me about it? It's a fair question. Some folks might try to spin a wild conspiracy theory, but the truth is much simpler. It all comes down to cold, hard economics. The pest control industry is a massive machine. That company has to pay for a fleet of gas-guzzling trucks. They have to pay the technicians' hourly wage, their health insurance, and their retirement. They have to pay for the slick television commercials, the glossy mailers, and the heavy equipment. A one-time purchase of a $4 bag of dirt that solves your problem forever does not keep the lights on at the corporate office. They rely entirely on recurring revenue. They need you to sign a contract that guarantees they can bill you $50, $60, or $80 every single month. They spray a chemical that is designed to break down in the sunlight and wash away in the rain, practically guaranteeing that the bugs will return and guaranteeing that you will call them back. They aren't hiding diatomaceous earth out of malice. They are simply ignoring it because there is absolutely no profit margin in a permanent $4 fix. So here is my advice to you, plain and simple. Take a drive to your local farm store or open up your computer and buy a bag of food-grade diatomaceous earth and a cheap plastic puffer bottle. Cancel the expensive contract. Go home, apply that fine, invisible mist to the dark corners of your house, and then just go on living your life. Be patient. Give it a few weeks, let the physics do the hard work, and watch as your home slowly, quietly returns to being yours again. I'd love to hear how it works out for you, so come back and leave a comment down below once you start seeing the results. Stick around too. In the next audio recording, I'm going to share another old farm secret. This time, we'll talk about how to deal with the mice in your walls without using a single drop of toxic bait. Until then, I'm Tom. Keep your hands dirty, keep your mind clear, and take care of your home.